Welcome back to the Foundation series, where we talk about all of the biblical characters and the events and things that you need to know as a Christian. These are the things that are the foundation of our faith and the things that I think will help you to understand the Bible in a better, deeper way. So this time we're going to be talking about an amazing person, but this is going to be our first in a series dealing with this person in particular, and his name is Jacob. Last time, obviously, the last few episodes, we've talked about Abraham and then his son Isaac, and then his son is who we're talking about now with Jacob and Esau. So this is going to be a fun conversation. Let's dive in, of course, to the scriptures, and we're going to be in Genesis chapter 25 to really break this down. So to kind of recap where we came from before, we had Abraham, then we had Isaac. Isaac, there's not too much in his life that we really had to dig into. You just need to know who he is. He is the chosen son of Abraham. He is the one that carries the blessing. He carries the lineage of Abraham. Even though Ishmael is the firstborn, Isaac is the one that carries the whole lineage of Abraham there and continues forth in this. Now, we see in the beginning of Genesis chapter 25, Abraham's death, and it talks about his descendants. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but nearing the end of chapter 25, we see the birth of Esau and Jacob. So these are the first two twins that we see in the Bible. Obviously, twins were probably a thing far before this point, but this is the first two twins that we actually see born in the Bible. We're going to talk about what the significance of them are and their lives kind of going up. So obviously the focus here is on Jacob, because Jacob is, well, he's really, really important to Israel. We'll say it that way. We'll save most of that for part 2, but let's jump into Jacob's early life and in the beginning of his marriages here as we jump into this. So we see the birth of Esau and Jacob. So these, again, are Abraham's son Isaac's offspring here. And obviously Isaac was married to Rebekah, and then they have these children. So verse 21. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. What does this remind you of? Obviously, this is a recurring thing that happens over and over and over again. We're going to see this in the Bible more and more and more. There's a woman who may be older or may not be older, but she's barren and she can't have children. And because of that, somebody's going to pray, and then she's going to be able to have children through that. So this is a big thing that we have to remember as we're looking into the scriptures, okay? So Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her. So this is going to be an important thing as well. If we jump down to verse 23, it says it like this. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and the 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. So this is really important as well. Remember this theme that we've been talking about with Isaac. Abraham had 2 sons, right? His oldest son, his first son, was Ishmael. And yet the Bible says that Isaac was his only son. That's because the blessing, the birthright, all of the honor got placed on Isaac because this was the one that God chose, right? For whatever reason. There's a lot of different reasons why you could argue that is. But God chose Isaac as the one because he came from Sarah and Abraham. And he was the only son of Abraham. Now we're seeing a very similar thing kind of playing out here. If we read this again, the one shall be stronger than the other, but the older shall serve the younger. This is not normal in the time of Abraham. This is not normal in the time of Isaac, where a younger child will serve the older one. The older one is always the patriarch of the family, especially once the father dies. And so there's this birthright and this blessing that becomes a huge part of understanding how you order the family, if that makes sense. So again, these brothers are going to be pitted against each other. They're gonna have nations that come from them, and these nations are going to be divided. They're going to be at war. They're going to be against each other. We have to keep that in mind, okay? When her days to give birth were complete, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now, here's a description that we get for both of these boys. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Esau. Okay, so the first one comes out. He's a really dark, really red skin, but then he's covered in hair. Like, imagine the most manliest man right from birth. That's basically how he's kind of described here. Then verse 26, after his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Now, many of you would know Jacob, the word Jacob in the Hebrew, to be translated as deceiver. Okay, so Jacob the deceiver is often what we hear. Also, here it would say that this could mean he who takes by the heel or he who cheats. Okay, so remember, keep that in mind. That's what Jacob's name is. Okay, because he was grabbing Esau's heel from birth as they were born. Okay, Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. All right, so the boys grew up. And you can kind of tell here that Esau is like this manly man who loves to hunt. He's super hairy. He's like, ooga booga, I am man, you know? Imagine like Thor and Loki, but in real life. That's kind of how this is. Like, Esau is kind of like Thor, where he's super strong. He's like kind of arrogant. He was a great hunter. But then Jacob is kind of like Loki, where he's like really demure. He's really quiet in a lot of ways, but he's very intelligent and he's kind of deceitful. Okay. And it says here, like, he was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Okay. Now Isaac loved Esau because ooga booga, man, I feed family, right? But Rebekah loved Jacob because he was quiet, a sensitive soul, an artist type, right? There's probably all these attributes that you can think of to kind of see how the two of them were opposites of each other. Now they look totally different. They're not identical twins. These are fraternal twins. Obviously, one of them was very big, very hairy, very manly. The other one very demure, small, and kind of quiet. Then we see in verse 29, Esau sells his birthright. Remember, the birthright is a very important thing. Isaac is bestowed this birthright from God, and he's the chosen one of the family, right? That's very, very important. Esau here sells his. So let's read through this. Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Therefore, his name was called Edom. Now, Edom here, is there a thing here? Edom sounds like the Hebrew word for red. So remember the word Edom, okay? Because this is going to come into play at later times throughout the Bible, okay? Esau is the father of Edom. That's a nation that becomes later on. But Edom it's like a onomatopoeia, not an onomatopoeia, but like a alliteration almost. Like it's a word that sounds like the word red in Hebrew, okay? Edom. All right, verse 31. Jacob said, "Then sell me your birthright." So Esau comes back from hunting. He's really, really hungry, and Jacob's cooking some stew. And so Esau says, "I really want some of that stew. I'm so exhausted." And Jacob says, "Oh yeah, you can have some for sure. Just give me your birthright." That's all you got to do. Just give me your birthright, Esau. So Esau is so hungry. He's like, "I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" And he's like, he says, "Swear to me now." And of course, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for some stew. Okay, so that's kind of the beginning of their lives, okay, as we go on to chapter 26. Esau is big, ooga booga, manly man, okay? Then we have Jacob, who is a deceiver. He's very cunning. And so Jacob is able to steal Esau's birthright. And in actuality, Esau gave over his birthright because Jacob he's not able to steal it, right? Esau has to give it to him. So now Jacob is now the one that has the birthright for the family. This is extremely important, but only the two of them really know that this is kind of going on. So let's continue on. We got God's promise to Isaac, which we have here. We're not really going to talk much about this section here. You can go back and read it. It's about Isaac, and he, like his father, begins to lie to people and tell people that his wife is his sister, all that kind of stuff. But chapter 27 is where we're going to pick up here, where Isaac blesses Jacob. Now, we're skipping forward in time. Last time we saw Isaac was 60 years old. Now he is very old, okay? So we've skipped a lot of time, okay? When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow. Go out to the field and hunt game for me. So he's saying, hey, I'm getting old. I don't know when I'm going to die. I would really like some good meat, some good food. Could you go on a hunt and get some stuff for the family? Get some stuff for me so I can eat. All right. So he goes and he prepares all this stuff. And Isaac says specifically in verse 4 here, he says, I want you to go hunt for me, come back and prepare me a special dish, just like I like it, make it just like I like it, and bring it to me that I can eat so that I can be ready to bless you before I die. Okay. Now, Rebekah was listening to this. Now, Jacob is a deceiver, but it seems like Rebekah is a little bit of a deceiver as well. So maybe that's where he gets it from. But now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went into the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare me a delicious food that I might eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Verse 8. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare that from them delicious food for your father, just as he loves. So she's saying, hey, like real quick, just go get some of the goats we have in the backyard, and I'll cook them up just like your dad likes. I know exactly how he likes it. So we're just gonna cook those up, and you're gonna serve it to him, and we're gonna trick him basically to give you the blessing. Okay. Then at verse 12, Jacob starts to give some concerns. He's like, perhaps my father will feel me and I shall seem to him mocking and he'll bring a curse on me instead of a blessing. And so she says, don't worry about that. If you get cursed, I'll take the curse upon myself. Don't worry about that. Let's continue with the plan. Okay. Verse 15. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. So she takes these goats' skins and starts putting them on Jacob to make him seem hairy like Ooga Booga Esau, right? This is one of the funniest parts to me. So she's just like putting animal skins on him to make Isaac think that this is Esau instead, okay? So this is a big ruse that's happening here. Okay, so they continue on. She cooks all the food. Jacob goes into Isaac's tent, okay, and begins to have this conversation with him, okay? He says, my father, and he says, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said this to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may please me. And then Isaac's like super confused, right? He's like, how is it that you've done this so quickly? Because the Lord your God, and he answered, because the Lord your God gave me success. So he's just lying to him out of his teeth, okay? Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near me so I can feel you, my son, to know whether you are my son Esau or not. So maybe things like this have happened in the past, and he's like wanting to make sure that it's not Jacob messing with him or something like that, or it's like some random stranger trying to steal this blessing. And so he comes close to him, and he's so confused. He feels his arms and stuff, and he says, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blesses him. So they successfully trick him, okay? And Jacob basically steals this blessing. Again, when we talk about this in the Israelite culture, in this culture for Abraham, because they're not really Israelites yet. This is like before Israelites are a thing. In this culture, like this is a really, really important thing. The birthright is extremely important because when your father dies, you kind of inherit everything and you start to run everything for your family. And then with the blessing, this is like a one-time thing. This is not like me like praying for you guys and being like, oh, I hope you do well. I hope this is good. I hope God blesses you. This is like a blessing from your father to a son, right? And there's only like one of these. Like this is not like a reusable thing that you can just do over and over again. So this is like a very important moment, and he just has taken not only the birthright from Esau, but also this blessing, as we read about that right here. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this video and you want to see more content just like this, then it would really help us out if you would support us on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you could help to make sure that we can continue to make content on this channel just like this, biblical content that's diving deep into what we actually need to know. So if you want to do that, hit the link in the description down below and become part of our Patreon family. All right, let's get back to the video. So he blesses him, and this is a really serious moment that basically happens. And then you see as we scroll down here that we see this big blessing here. If you want to go back and read that here, here's the blessing where he's basically like, Lord, look over him, make his offspring many nations, all that kind of stuff. Make him blessed to everyone around him and curse anybody who curses him, etc., etc. Verse 30. As soon as Isaac had finished his blessing, finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from his presence of Isaac, his father, Esau, his brother, came into the tent from his hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father, and he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." So Esau is a little bit late to the party. He's finally caught his game. He's made this delicious food, and he's about to deliver it to his father. And then his father's super confused. So his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he answered, "I'm your son, your firstborn Esau." Then Isaac trembled very violently and said, "Who was it that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came? And I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed." As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob?" Remember, because Jacob means cheat or deceiver. "For he has cheated me these two times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" And basically Isaac goes on to explain, like, hey, there's only one blessing. Let's see, what could I give to you? And he's kind of stuck in this place. And then he says this to him. He says, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. But by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother." This is not a very good blessing. "But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." Yeah. So this is where things take a turn, okay? Remember what happened at the very beginning when we see the birth of Esau and Jacob. They're going to be pitted against each other, right? They're going to be made enemies of each other. They're going to be divided, okay? This is when that begins to really, really happen. Verse 41. Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." All right, so we're seeing as Esau has now basically given this word of declaration that he is going to kill his brother whenever their father dies, or whenever he can, to be honest. And so this is now a big deal. Rebecca hears that he says this, and she, obviously loving Jacob, wants to save him from this happening, okay? Now, verse 43. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban, my brother, in Haran, and stay with him a while, until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of you both in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I loathe my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me?" Now this is foreshadowing into who Jacob is going to marry. Okay, so Rebekah is saying these Hittite women are horrible. I don't like them. Esau has married basically these local women who have been an issue, and so she's not happy about that. She doesn't want that. She doesn't want to see Jacob marry Hittite women here, or local women here. All right, verse 28. So Jacob gets sent to Laban. Now remember, we heard about Laban previously. We had actually talked about him and had conversation with him earlier on in Genesis. Whenever Isaac he sends his servant to go find him a wife, and he runs into Rebekah. Rebekah's brother is Laban. Okay, we're gonna have some more weird family get-togethers here. This is a weird time in the Bible where kind of like everybody's cousins and nieces and nephews are all like sleeping with each other. It's kind of weird, but it is how it worked out here. And these are God's chosen people to kind of go forward. So let's read through this. So Jacob gets sent to Laban. Again, Isaac is now telling Jacob, since he knows he's going to leave, he's like, hey, don't take a wife from the Canaanite woman. Go to Laban's house, essentially, and get a woman from one of his daughters. That way you'll be in the family, so to speak. You'll be not getting a woman from the Canaanite women. All right, verse 5. Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. Okay, so this is his uncle. Okay, so Jacob goes to his uncle, and then he is going to figure out what to do from there. Now we see here again another example of Esau's hatred, not only towards Jacob but also towards his parents and towards Isaac. So this whole last section we've heard, hey, we don't want you marrying these random people. We want you to marry people that are of our same understanding, are of our same kind of at least foundation, right? So when Esau hears this, he's like, oh, I'm definitely marrying a Canaanite woman then. And so he's like, he hears that Canaanite women did not please Isaac, his father. So Esau went to Ishmael and took his wife, besides the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. So obviously Ishmael's offspring are not Canaanite. So he's saying, okay, well, I'll marry into the Ishmael line then, since they're not Canaanite. But this is obviously an issue as well, because this is not what Isaac would have wanted either, right? And as we're seeing, right, the offspring of Ishmael, the offspring of Esau is kind of going into that line now of people, and this is causing a huge rift, obviously, that causes future nations to have major issues from the offspring of Ishmael and Esau and into the offspring of Isaac and Jacob. So it's a big deal here, kind of as he's getting into that family now. All right, Jacob's dream. I wanted to mention this quickly because we're going to talk about this when we get into the Gospels, like way later on. Just this verse right here. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. We see Jesus talk about this later, and this is Jacob having a dream about Jesus, essentially. Jesus is this ladder that connects heaven and earth, okay? He is the high priest that connects God to people. And so this is what this is foreshadowing all the way back in Genesis. This is foreshadowing Jesus here in verse 12. So really cool moment there where we get that from. All right, moving on to the next chapter, chapter 29. This is where it gets kind of complicated. Not that it's not already complicated, but let's talk through this. All right, here we go. Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. Well, this is already weird, right? We see two women's names there and not just one. So let's talk about this. Okay, so long story short, through all of this section, Jacob goes to Laban and he begins to talk to all of them. He meets up with their people, and he finally is there with Laban. He did not go here necessarily to find a wife. He came here to run away from Esau, but Rebekah, knowing that he was probably going to find a wife, was like, hey, don't marry any of these crazies. Marry, the people that we know. Verse 10. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Okay. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. All right, so he sees Rachel. He really, really, really likes her, okay? And I don't think this kiss is like a weird, like he kissed this random girl. I think this is more of like a greeting, and like I've found them. I found her, right? And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Okay, so Jacob says that to Rachel. He says, "Hey, we're related. You know, I'm here to stay with you guys. Like, you know, I need to get to know you guys, basically, because he's never met them previously." All right, we continue down. We see that Laban basically has two daughters who we meet in a bit. One of them is called Leah, and now here, Laban had two daughters. The name of the older one, remember, being the oldest is very important, okay? even if you're a girl, being the oldest is very important, okay? The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, okay? So he fell in love with Rachel. He's like totally into her, okay? And he said, "I will serve you for 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel." Okay, so he says, "I will work for you for a whole 7 years in order for you to give me Rachel." Okay. Then we get here. Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served for 7 years for Rachel. And they seemed to him but a few days because of the love that he had for her. Okay, so it went by really, really quickly for him. Okay, then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed." Okay, so he's ready. I don't know if you guys have ever waited 7 years for a girl. I don't know if I could do that. So he's ready to go. You know, but Laban, being of the same family as Rebekah and maybe of the same mind as Jacob, deceives him. And so even though he says, "Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's have a feast. Let's do everything up," he tricks Jacob. And the night that he's supposed to sleep with Rachel and marry her and all that stuff, he actually switches her out for Leah. And so then Jacob sleeps with Leah, and in the morning he realizes this. Okay, verse 25. "And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, 'What is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?'" Okay. Laban basically says it's not done in our country. It's not our custom to give you the younger girl when my older daughter is not yet married. So he's saying, like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to have my older daughter even if you don't want her, essentially. So he says, complete the week of this one, and we will give you also in return for serving me another 7 years. And we'll give you the other one, basically. So Laban is saying, "Promise me that you'll serve me another 7 years. Complete this week of festival, basically this wedding with Leah, and then I'll give you Rachel as well." So Jacob did so. He completed that week, and then Laban gave his daughter Rachel to him, and then he had to stay for another 7 years on top of all of that, okay? So this is a really crazy situation, right? Laban, his uncle, has now offered him his two daughters, which are his cousins, right? And they are now all of them married together, okay? Again, when we talk about this kind of thing, you're probably asking yourself, this is really weird. Like, aren't they God's chosen people? Like, what are we supposed to be thinking about this? And here's the truth, okay? The Bible is not prescriptive, it is descriptive, okay? What does that mean? It means that not everything in the Bible in the way that it's shown is telling us, hey, you should do it this way. This is the way that you should do it, right? When we see David murdering people, that's not the way that we should do it, right? When we see Peter having struggles and going through these bouts of anger and different things like that, that doesn't mean that we should do the same thing, okay? The Bible is descriptive. It's just telling a story. It's telling us how it happened. It's not cleaning up the bad parts just because we think it's uncomfortable or whatever. this is a serious moment, right? This is a moment where, first of all, this is thousands of years ago, where it's a totally different environment, totally different understanding, and it's just a weird thing that we don't understand in today's world, right? But at the same time, you have to remember that these could just be mistakes that are being made, and that maybe Jacob was supposed to marry Leah, or maybe he was supposed to just marry Rachel, but we don't really know about that, and none of us can really make the conclusion for that either. So this is the way that it happened, though. So as we go through. So basically, in the same week, he ends up marrying Leah and Rachel, but then he has to stay for another 7 years in order to fulfill his commitment to Laban, okay? So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel much more than Leah. And he served Laban for another 7 years. Now, here's where we're going to talk about the children of Jacob and where this is going to kind of go. This is not the end of Jacob's story, but it's the beginning of a lot of things that we're going to talk about in terms of the future of the Bible, period. This is why I'm saying that Jacob is one of the most important biblical figures that we're going to be talking about, because he lays the groundwork and the foundation for the future of Israel. And we're going to figure out why that is probably in part 2 of this, but we're going to finish off here with Jacob's children and talking about how this is kind of going on for Leah and Rachel here. All right, verse 31. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, remember, Jacob did not like her, okay? He did not want to be with her, but I'm sure that relationship was, I don't know, I'm sure it had ebbs and flows throughout time, because he definitely slept with her a lot. So when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened up her womb, but Rachel was barren. So Jacob is now in love with Rachel, and he's married to Rachel and Leah, but Rachel can't have children and Leah can, okay? Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. Remember that name, Reuben, okay? For she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. She called his name Simeon. Okay, so Reuben and Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. Remember Levi, maybe reminding you of Levitical priests, right? We'll talk about that in a bit. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Okay, so she has these 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. These are the first 4 sons of Jacob. Now, we're going to stop there, I think, for today. But of course, we're going to jump into all this other stuff later, talk about the other sons of Jacob, and talk about Jacob's name change in part 2. So make sure you come back for that.